This program is sponsored by the Church of God International and supported by our viewers.
There has been an obvious agenda at work for a considerable amount of years. It's been designed to erase the borders of sovereign nation states and merge them into a community of nations. Much of it has been promoted by the United Nations in conjunction with many world organizations and advanced throughout Europe by the European Union. This movement toward uniting the world into a one world order has been underway and with forceful influence, gaining a degree of success that has been threatening to rearrange the geopolitical landscape. But something has recently changed and is accelerating in size and scope. A nationalist movement has emerged and now appears to be in play, gaining momentum throughout the world and is even beginning to spread within the European Union. Most notably, the United Kingdom's Brexit movement, along with Greece and Italy, as well as the Netherlands and a few others, are all considering a more nationalist approach. So, what does this mean for globalism? Will this new populism gain acceptance and derail the globalist movement altogether? Stay with us as we explore these questions on today's program.
In times like these, we need the armor of God for the well-being of our families, to help you stand in the evil day. The Church of God International presents Armor of God, a program of biblical understanding. And now your host, Bill Watson.
Well, hello there, and again, welcome to another international edition of the Armor of God. Good to be with all of you once again. You know, just the other day, I was sitting drinking some coffee and thinking about all of the changes that you and I are surrounded by that have just occurred over the last half a dozen years or so. They're astounding in some cases, amazing. And I was thinking about how we and oftentimes don't recognize just the magnitude and the types of trends that are actually emerging because we're always so busy and immersed in our own lifestyles. Well, I wanted to take a moment just to kind of peruse through and take you through a narration of some of these changes that perhaps maybe got by you and you are unaware of, but thought that it would be helpful for you to recognize that yes, the world we're living in is indeed changing. For instance, homosexual marriages have and are now legalized in all of North America. That's right. The whole continent has legalized homosexual marriages on the level of heterosexual marriages. Transgender boys can now compete in girls' sports, and transgender girls can, if they feel like a boy, well, they can go and use the boys' room. And boys, if they feel like a girl, well, they can go ahead and use the girls' room. In technology, believe it or not, artificial intelligence has made tremendous strides in the area of robotics and genetic engineering. And the automobile industry is on a fast track in the development of driverless cars, hopefully to make available to the public as soon as they can. Not to mention commercial space travel. Can you imagine going in outer space for a trip from one area on Earth to the other, but going in outer space and doing that? Yes, it is actually being explored and developed by the private sector as we speak. Now, in the area of culture and crime, the legalization of cannabis as recreational use has a tremendous potential of affecting culture in many ways. It's already developing into a multi-billion-dollar industry and is actually on the stock market. You can buy stock in some of these cannabis growing companies. And we've already seen the impact it's had in the medical area as it has been used for medical use in many countries around the world. In the area of crime, pedophilia is a worldwide pandemic, and human trafficking, well, that's bigger now than the drug smuggling industry. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but 60,000 sealed indictments are now in play and submitted by the Department of Justice here in the United States. Politics and trends in politics are very interesting. Do you know over 60, that's right, 60 politicians mixed up in the House and the Senate here in the United States chose not to go ahead and run for re-election. I wonder if it has anything to do with the 60,000 plus sealed indictments. I guess we'll have to find out in time to see if that plays out that way. But political scandals, my friends, and corruption are at an all-time high. And the Clinton Foundation, well, it's being reinvestigated. That's right, it's being reopened and reinvestigated for illegal activity by a federal judge. George Soros and his Open Society Foundation, it has been actually now connected with advancing globalist agenda initiatives and caught financing anarchist activity conducted by some of these groups like Antifa and other destructive protest groups that focus on different social justice issues, such as, for instance, immigration invasions, where they're challenging the immigration laws of sovereign nation states, hoping to break them down and in hopes to advance their globalist agenda in those areas. And so you have these many events going on, initiatives, and I haven't even mentioned anything on the international level like this UN's Global Immigration Compact that they're pushing to all sovereign nation states, hoping they'll adopt it so that they can begin to move people from third worlds. Or how about Agenda 21, that some of its rules, regulations have been indeed adopted by some of the sovereign nation states of the world. All of these things, my friends, and I could literally go on and on here for the remaining time I have, listing a whole lot of other things, but I can't help but to think, if you're like me, you gotta ask, where is all this leading us? Well, before we get into addressing that, let me interrupt myself as we normally do here and present to you two free offers that I have for you on today's program. I emphasize they're free. They're 1-hour presentations, two of them, 2 hours long. One is titled Open Your Eyes, and the other one, Riders in the Storm Update. That's a presentation given about 10 years ago or so, but has now been updated into a more modernistic relativity so that it'll be addressing some of the issues that I'll just be scratching the surface on today. All you've got to do is dial 888-578-8791. Ask the operator there for these free offers, or just leave us your contact information and we'll get this stuff out to you in about 2 to 3 weeks or so. Give us some time. Oh, and by the way, don't let me forget reminding all of you of our webcasting and podcasting features on our internet, on our website. All you've got to do is go to our homepage, look at the location there of webcasting. We'll have listed there our schedules for Bible studies throughout the week, live sermons on Saturday at certain posted times, be they Central Time, Eastern Standard Time, but take note of that as well so that you've got the times right. But all of these are available for enhancing your walk and your relationship with Jesus Christ. All you've got to do is hit us on our website at www.cgi.org or call 888-578-8791. And again, let me remind you to ask for those free offers that we have, 2 CDs, 1 hour each, titled Open Our Eyes and Riders in the Storm Updated. Now, back to the program here as we were talking about politics and the trends in politics and on the international geopolitical level. I'd like to spend the rest of my time here on this program addressing some of this because I think there's a particular misguided understanding we have about politics because, well, frankly, you and I have been subjected to this idea of party politics. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Democrats, Republicans. I'm talking about thinking in terms of libertarians and independents, Labor Party, Conservative Party. You know what I'm talking about. All of us have these ideas that, well, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and we have these stereotypes about Republicans and Democrats. Republicans, they're big business, big corporations, small government generally. In general, they're for lower taxes. Democrats, on the other hand, are more progressive. They push the limits. They're known, stereotyped, and put in a box about the fact that they're always looking out for the little guy. Special interest groups. They're trying to get, certain laws passed that would favor more equal justice, bigger government, higher taxes. These are the stereotypes that I'm talking about. Well, what I'm asking all of us to do today, put all that to the side for a moment, because there is something, my friends, we're missing. Because party politics has the potential of misguiding and deceiving all of us of what is actually far more sinister, working in the shadows, under the radar screen, much more ominous, disastrous, treacherous in many respects, because it is moving us without us even knowing it, because we're all over here thinking about all these little party politicians and politic parties, when in fact this is what's really going on. Before I really get into identifying what I'm talking about in terms of this force and this trend, let me bring your attention over here to Revelation chapter 13. This is the description by the Apostle John of an emerging world power. And I want to emphasize that, because the indication here, my friends, is clear. It's plain. It is in our face that the script has already been written prophetically. We are destined to see this play out unless the whole world repents and accepts Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. So with that being said, looking at these words here that the Apostle John wrote to us, I want to emphasize something to all of us, hoping that you'll recognize that there is something coming at us like a freight train that we don't even recognize, because we're all distracted in party politics. It's time we really get our face out of party politics and back in the Bible. Notice this. Verse 3, prophetically speaking, the apostle writes, "And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death. The deadly wound was healed. And," here's what I want to emphasize, notice, "and all the world wondered after the beast." This is a world recognizable force that is made up of a very long historical legacy. Frankly, it goes back to Babylon, it goes back to the Medes, it goes back to Rome, it goes back to the Greco-Macedonians. He goes on here. He says, "And they worshiped the dragon that gave power to this beast." This is a satanic force, my friends. Ultimately, this world, globe-circling, world-influencing force is actually driven by Satan, the devil. It's satanic. It's demonic. It is not good for planet Earth or the people in it. He goes on and he says, "They worship this beast, saying, 'Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?'" That's right, my friends. Who is able to make war with this beast? And that is what they're asking. The apostle here is asking. And he's saying, "There was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Power was given unto him to continue 3.5 years, 42 months. He opened his mouth, he blasphemed against God, he blasphemed his name and his tabernacle, them that dwell in heaven, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints." This is going to be a highly persecuting force on saints. It's not good for Christians. This globalist government, and why do I call it globalist? Look at this. Look at the remaining portion of verse 7. "And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Oh, my friends, this thing is going to be a very disastrous, ominous, controlling, and very bad force, dominant force for people that don't get with the program. Notice over here, Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. We read regarding the destiny of this particular force. Notice this, and in verse 12, 10 horns, which you saw, well, these are 10 kings, which received no kingdom as yet, but did receive power as kings 1 hour with this beast, a short time. He goes on, these have one mind. They shall give their power and strength to the beast. They're going to coalesce. This is going to be a coalition. This is going to be a community of kings pooling their power together in a socialistic fashion to support and empower this tyrant called and named and labeled by the Apostle John as the beast. He goes on here, verse 14, notice this one. These shall make war with the Lamb, Jesus the Christ. That's right. This thing is going to become so big and influential that the world itself is actually going to cry when it meets its fall, when it meets its demise. You can read about that, by the way, in Revelation 18. I know that describes the demise of the beast power, of this highly worldwide, global, and influencing force. But nevertheless, if you read between the lines, you'll be able to see just how powerful this particular power became and how influential and how people really bought into it and liked it and were actually friends with it and benefited by it. It became a tremendous benefactor to the whole world. They were beneficiaries of it in so many ways. And so you might ask, well, what am I talking about? What am I driving at here? What I'm driving at is there is a globalist system that is predetermined to affect the whole world, my friends. And it's coming at us like a locomotive. Notice over here in Daniel chapter 7, again, this prophet spoke 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago. And he in chapter 7 and in verse 23 writes this, talking about the fourth beast, which happens to be overlaid on what John wrote. John validates actually what Daniel wrote here in this vision. Verse 23, I'm just going to cut to the chase because I just want to make one point about this fourth beast, this kingdom, world, globe-girdling kingdom. Notice, verse 23, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be different from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. Verse 25, he shall speak great words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints. This thing is not good for Christians. This globalist government is going to mark people. We read that in other parts of your Bible. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to eat. There's going to be some kind of a mark that it's going to tattoo on people, whether it's physical or not, whether it's in commerce, be it a credit card, I don't know, whether it's technology, whether it's something that you're going to have because you can't get on Google without it. I don't know. All I know is without it, you are not going to be able to become a sociocrat of that system. You're not going to be able to function in it. This is not going to be good for Christians. My friends, uniquely enough, out of the blue, I want to introduce to you something here. This is unique. It is something that has come out in a surprising fashion and is now emerging on the world, onto the world scene. And actually, no one expected it. As a matter of fact, the bottom line is what this sinister movement of globalism has been doing, and that is the sinister trend. If you haven't got my point yet, that's what I'm talking about that has been ominous in working in the shadows, because the bottom line is a globalist system has been in operation, and you can make the case for an awful long time, but certainly this side of World War II for many decades, and has been moving us toward this one world order. But then, out of the blue, here all of a sudden we see a resurgence of a counterintuitive force that I want to introduce to you formally here, because I think it's time for all of us to recognize there are two counterintuitive forces at work here in today's world that are now becoming clearer to all of us, or at least it should be becoming clearer to all of us. And what is this force, this counterintuitive force? I'm going to share with you a word. Now, I know some of you may not really like to hear this word that I'm about to introduce you to. You've heard it already in some cases, but I just want you to be forewarned here. Buckle up, settle down, don't get shook, just hear me out. That's all I'm asking you. Here it is now. You ready? Nationalism. Ooh, that's right, nationalism. Oh, Bill, I know, I wish you wouldn't use that word, and I know, I get it, believe me. I understand that the record of nationalism is highly suspect, needless to say, because as soon as we hear this word nationalism, all of us recoil into this thing about white supremacy. You know, we think about Nazism and Hitler. We think about, you know, the fascist nationalists like Mussolini. We think of people like Napoleon, and I get all of that. I understand that to my bone, believe me. And I'm in agreement with you that, frankly, nationalism certainly can go south. And if it does, and when it does, we've seen it play out, it doesn't play out very well. But then nor does what we just read here, globalism. Yet nevertheless, the fact remains that nationalism is a counterintuitive force to globalism and does present, my friends, an obstacle of serious consideration. And let me mention something here. Let me take a moment. I'd just like to, I've got my phone here with me, and I'm going to bring up my dictionary just to read to you the actual meaning of what nationalism means, just so you got it clear in your minds. First meaning, love of country and willingness to sacrifice for it. Love of country and willingness to sacrifice for it. Here's another one. Aspirations for national independence felt by people under foreign domination. Here's a third one. The doctrine that nations should act independently rather than collectively to attain their goals. Did you hear anything about, doing things selfishly? Did you hear anything about anything with regards to the fact of whether or not it's at the expense of others, that we're just going to jump and step down on other people to get ahead? No, my friends, it's very simple. You could make the case that if you're in the military, you're a nationalist because you love your country and you're willing to sacrifice, in this case, your life for it. So my point in all of this is nationalism, at least at this point in this phase, does present an interesting counterintuitive force to the globalist initiatives that have been in play on planet Earth. And frankly, we're beginning to see the effects of it. The European Union is unraveling. There are nationalist movements within the European that are actually beginning to dismantle the European Union. You've got countries like Ukraine and Poland. You've got countries like Greece and Italy all talking about independence. You've got Brexit. Many of us are familiar with that, along with the United States of America, that is actually all involved in many of these what are now being considered nationalist movements. That's right. And they are making headway in, if nothing else, slowing down the globalist agenda. The United States, many of you know, has redefined NAFTA. They've pulled out of the World Trade Organization. They've gone ahead and removed themselves, under this present administration, out of the Paris Climate Accord. And they're forcing NATO, the European Protective Services of the United States, to pay their fair share, looking for fairness, I don't know if that's all that wrong. I don't know if all of that we're hearing and seeing are all that wrong. But what I am here to say, and clearly I can identify with, and I think you can identify with, it is absolutely slowing down the globalist momentum that has been taking our world into what we've been reading here. Notice this, Daniel 8. I want you to understand this, brethren, friends. In the latter days, chapter 8, the book of Daniel, verse 23, the latter time of their kingdom, talking about the fourth beast, when the transgressors of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy by peace, wonderfully, through peace and prosperity, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. And through his policies also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hands, and shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace, through actual economics and through prosperity, destroy many. And he shall stand up against the Prince of Princes, Jesus Christ. This is the same tyrant we read about in Revelation 17. My friends, this is, and what's happening, what we're seeing is globalism will lead the world into tyranny, and it's labeled by God as the beast. And in light of what's coming, I would say, if you haven't identified it, I would say that the kind of nationalism that is going on now should provide you with the understanding we're being given some additional time to preach this gospel, to help God save more people, and to do the work of the very living God. And this kind of nationalism can't be all that bad when you consider that as a result of what we see going on. My friends, time's run out on me. Go ahead, dial 888-578-8791. Ask for those 2 free offers that we're offering. Open Our Eyes and Riders in the Storm update. Both are free for the asking. Hit us on our website at www.cgi.org, and we will see you right back here, hopefully at another session. In the meantime, you keep on that armor of God so that you may be able to stand in this evil day.
Armor of God and the free material offered is brought to you by the Church of God International of Tyler, Texas. You may write to us at 3900 Timms Street, Tyler, Texas 75701, or call toll-free at 1-888-578-8791, or call 1-903-939-2929 during regular business hours. You may visit our website at www.cgi.org or email us at armorofgodcgi.org. We appreciate your prayers and support.
This program is sponsored by the Church of God International and supported by our viewers.